morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, it's time to take another look at Flygon-GX. Now, I get a lot of questions, comments, queries, quibbles. I get a lot of messages from people, be it Twitter, Facebook, email, YouTube comments. I get a lot of messages from a lot of people. I don't always get time to respond to all of them for fairly obvious reasons. I get over 100 YouTube comments a day. Can't respond to all of them, unfortunately, though I do read the vast majority. And one of the things that keeps coming up, that people keep asking me about, is Flygon-GX. People at the moment, at least a lot of people, are extremely interested with the idea that Flygon could be a very, very good deck. Now, here's the thing. We are moving into a format where fighting Pokemon are going to just be absolutely everywhere. As it stands at the moment, one of the best decks in the game is Pikachu and Zekrom. And yeah, fine, they're going to be losing Thunder Mountain and Electro Power to rotation, but I really don't think that's going to be the end of Lightning decks. But even if it is, there was an unofficial National Championships in Japan a couple of weeks ago, which was won by Vikavolt. And in the final, Vikavolt had to take down Vikavolt. Yeah, you see, Vikavolt's probably the best deck right now. Although the other deck, the one that was really heralded in advance of that tournament and did have a very good showing of 3 in the top 16, was Eternatus VMAX. Then you add in the fact that the two best support Pokemon are Dedenne and Crobat, both of which are weak to fighting, and essentially what we have here is a format where being able to hit weakness with a fighting Pokemon is going to be a very, very good thing. The question becomes, is Flygon that fighting Pokemon? Well, we got 240 HP, which is the same as Pikachu and Zekrom, but you only give up 2 prizes rather than 3. So that's a pretty good start. And you yourself are weak to grass, which is just not a relevant type at the moment. Might be in the future, but isn't really now. The big issue, of course, is the fact that you're a Stage 2. Being a Stage 2 is kind of rubbish. But having said that, we've got ways. I mean, we got a lot of good draw power right now. Be it, you know, the aforementioned things like Dedenne, or things like Jirachi, or even just stuff like Rosa. Rosa's a great thing for this, because if you got a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, you get to search for a Pokemon, a trainer card, and a basic energy. So essentially what you search for here is a rare candy and a Flygon, and you're off. I've done videos about why Stage 2s are better now than they have been for a while. That is the big downside of Flygon, the fact that it is a Stage 2. I admit that. But when we actually start to look at what it does, there is so much to love here. While it is your active Pokemon, all of your Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. And don't forget, Salamence is looking pretty good post-rotation. And that's got an attack for 3 colorless energy that does 30 damage to each of your Pokemon. Well, if you've got a Flygon in the active, Salamence does nothing. Absolutely nothing. Ha. When we move on to the attacks, we do have a GX attack, 220, not affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. And this is fine if your opponent's trying to use some kind of safeguard Pokemon, something like a Decidueye, for instance, to block GXs and Pokemon Vs. This will give you 1 KO. To be fair, it will only be 1 because it's a GX attack. It's once during the game. But it is a nice once per game option to go through something like Decidueye. It's there. But the main attack we got here is Desert Hurricane, 120 damage. But if there is any stadium card in play, yours or your opponent's, you do 240 and discard that stadium card. And essentially with Flygon here, you just start hitting the numbers. I mean, let's assume there is no stadium in play. You're just hitting for 120. Well, Pikachu and Zekrom goes down, Vikavolt goes down, Dedenne goes down, Crobat goes down, Eternatus V goes down, the VMAX does not. And yeah, that's quite a lot. Single prize Pokemon, a lot of them will go down, some of them won't, unfortunately. But you'll get a lot of single prize Pokemon. And I should probably mention at this stage that being a fighting Pokemon, yes, Diancie Prism Star is being lost to the rotation, and that's really sad. But we are still going to have Martial Arts Dojo. Does an extra 10 damage or 40 if you're behind on prizes. Yes, and you often will be for the first attack or two, because you're probably going to lose a Pokemon or two setting up, as you tend to do in Stage 2 decks. And the thing is, if we look at the wording of Flygon, if there is any Stadium in play, this attack does 120 more damage. Then discard that Stadium, so we don't need any kind of ruling here. It is blatantly obvious that you do apply the extra damage from something like Martial Arts Dojo before you discard the Stadium. So that's a pretty good thing. And to be fair, if you're behind on prizes, you're doing 160, and now that is basically every single prize Pokemon, though you won't be getting multiple prize Pokemon unless you're hitting for weakness. But now let's say there is a Stadium in play. I mean, you can play a bunch of Stadium here. There's nothing to stop you playing a bunch of Stadium, and you often will be. And your opponent's probably going to be playing a few Stadium. And not for nothing, but this is great to stop your opponent's Stadiums. If they're really relying on something like Giant Hearth in order to get themselves fire energy, or that Rose Tower, the one that's just Oranguru, you can use it to draw until you got 3 cards in hand on your turn, but then discard it with Flygon before your opponent gets to use it again, and that will amuse me greatly. So it's not the main reason I think we're playing Flygon here, but I do adore the fact that you can actually have this as Stadium Denial. That's pretty gosh darned fun. But if you're hitting 240 damage, obviously something like Eternatus V Max, because of weakness, is just gone. But then we look at the other stuff that's pretty good right now. Zacian goes away in one hit. That's done. It's over. Something like Reshiram and Charizard or Mewtwo and Mew are not going in one hit. But with a Martial Arts Dojo, if you're behind on prizes, then you're up to 280 and you will get a KO. And the thing is, they're free prize Pokemon. If you're not behind on prizes, you shouldn't be under some giant stress to get a one-hit KO. But if you are, you can get the one-hit KO. Though you do have to be very careful with your Stadiums, bearing in mind they get discarded when you use them, or when you attack. But still, it's a very nice thing. And now all of a sudden you are getting a KO on basically everything that's relevant. I mean, I keep going back to the top 16 at Japan's National Championships this, past couple of weeks. And honestly, about the only relevant Pokemon you're not KOing here is Centiskorch V Max. Centiskorch V Max, unfortunately, you are a little bit away. They're sitting up there at 320 and you're not hitting them for weakness, but everything else in the top 16 goes down in one hit here. Really, with Flygon, the question of is it a good Pokemon, the answer is undoubtedly yes, with a gigantic caveat, if you can get it set up. Because the other thing is, if we start looking at Pokemon KOing you, you've basically got 240 HP, but really, you're taking 30 less from attack, so you're talking 270. And let's not forget that Stone Fighting Energy is coming out, which means that fighting Pokemon with it attached take 20 less damage from attacks. Let's assume you've got a single Stone Fighting Energy attached here. Well, now all of a sudden, you've got an effective HP of 290. You got 240 HP, but you're taking 50 less from attacks, and that's assuming that your opponent is trying to one-hit KO you. Remember, if they're trying to two-hit KO you, then that minus 50 will essentially be put in twice, and you've got an effective HP of 340, which is equal to the highest HP of any Pokemon in the game right now. So not only are you hitting really relevant numbers, but you're really hard to KO. I mean, a Zacian hitting you for 230, they're just not getting a KO. They need to have used Arceus and Dialga and Palkia's GX attack and have a Vitality Band just to be able to hit the number here, and that's just going to be too awkward. Pikachu and Zekrom's hitting a maximum 200, they're not going to have Electro Power. So, yeah, that's entirely gone. Reshiram and Charizard hits for 230 damage. But again, with your ability as well, they're just not going to be able to get a one-hit KO on you. Vikavolt, I mean, this is amazing against Vikavolt. Vikavolt is basically the old Seismitoad. It does 50 damage, but stops you playing item cards from your hand next turn. Well, if you've got a single Stone Fighting Energy attached, they do 0 damage to you. Now, admittedly, if they can get the item lock going early, getting Flygon out will be very difficult. I understand that. But don't forget, these Stage 2 decks can always use Lily's Pokédoll to try and buy themselves a couple of turns. Although, again, the Lily's Pokédoll have to be benched before Vikavolt starts item locking, because they are item cards. But if you can get one of these out against a Vikavolt, you're one-hit KOing while they're doing 0 damage, and the second they start using their second attack, you're not item locked anymore. This is a matchup-based Pokemon. I am not taking a second look at Flygon here because I really like Flygon and it looks cool. I'm taking a second look at Flygon here because all of a sudden it is hitting numbers to get key one-hit KOs while avoiding key one-hit KOs, and that's the recipe. Now, we've talked about the fact that you're a Stage 2, and that is awkward, but there are ways around it. Just lots of draw power and Rosa. The other issue is the free fighting energy. We still don't have good fighting acceleration. Now, the good news is, if you're behind on prizes, Karate Belt will pay one of those free energy. And then, if you're then not behind on prizes, you can just attach a third energy next turn. And the fact that you should take a couple of hits means you will have a little bit more time to manually attach than an average deck would. So this is all good stuff. And that's what you're doing a lot of the time here, except we've got red and blue. And red and blue, I think, is the big answer here. It also helps you avoid the need for rare candy, which can be good against stuff like Vikavolt. You see, what red and blue does is it searches for a Pokemon GX that evolves from one of your Pokemon, and then you put it on that Pokemon, but if you also discard 2 cards from your hand, you can search your deck for 2 basic energy and attach to the Pokemon you evolved in this way. So if you use red and blue to evolve a Vibrava into a Flygon-GX, you then just need to attach 1 energy from your hand, and you're off and rolling. And hopefully that energy from your hand will be a stone fighting energy. We do also have that new Trumbeat coming out. It's the one where when you evolve into it, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, find as much basic energy as you like and attach them to your Pokemon. But remember, you can use Oranguru from Sword and Shield to guarantee there's an energy on top of your deck, because you put it there while drawing a card. So you could go Toucannon, you could go red and blue, you've got Karate Belt. And maybe this is not quite as difficult to get the energy on as we worried it might be. I know that it's a Stage 2 and I know that it takes free energy, but I think we can work around it here. My preference would be using Lily's Pokédoll to try and buy a couple of turns, and then rather than using Rosa for rare candy, I'd want to use red and blue after evolving up into my Stage 1s. Yes, I'll need to buy a couple turns to do so. But I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it hits the numbers and it avoids the numbers. There is definitely potential for Flygon to be coming out in the near future. I do need to give a giant shout out before we finish, however, to the lovely John Beck. He is one of my supporters over at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. John was the first person to really be pushing Flygon to me. He was pushing it primarily as a Zacian counter. It's got a great Zacian matchup, but I was always a little bit apprehensive. With the way the format is turning now, I really do think we've gotten to the stage where we need to take a big, hard, long second look at Flygon. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.